Welcome to Alligator Preserves, everyone. I am your host, Laurel McHargue, and I have another extra special guest with me today, all the way from right up the road, actually, Denver, I think. His name is Peter Heller, and he is coming out with a new book in just a few days. It's called Burn. We're going to talk to Peter about lots of things. Welcome, Peter, to Alligator Preserves.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Are you right up in Denver right now?
Yep, I'm in
All,
Denver.
all right, because I'm looking at your house and it looks kind of Maine-ish. I know you have a connection with Maine.
I'd love to be on the coast of Maine this morning in the heat. Yeah.
I'm going to be there, not to make you jealous or anything, but I'm going to be there in 4 days to visit a
Not
sister I have, to visit all
sweet.
my sisters, actually. I have lots of sisters. So, for those of you who don't know Peter, you need to look him up. Look up Peter Heller, and you have a bio that would span the whole time of our visit together. So I'm not going to go into everything other than saying that you're a multi-award winning bestseller author. And my question to you is, do you ever get embarrassed by your bio and by all the accolades you get when people list them?
I get embarrassed in lots of other ways. I don't need to get embarrassed by that. I'm
Well,
embarrassed half the time as soon as I walk out the door. So I'm only
well, that's good to know. That's good to know. So tell everyone out there who you are today. Like, who's Peter Heller, aside from all the.
well, I'm a person who gets up in the morning, has two very strong cups of coffee on the porch. I love a really good porch, and so they always appear in my books. Uh, I take Advil because I've been a little physical in my life, and then I go to the coffee shop and I work and I write 1,000 words a day. And I never write less. I go just past it until I'm into something really interesting. So I can't wait to get up the next morning. I never let myself go on past that. Store up the energy is how I sort of get momentum. And then I spend my afternoons outside trying to get be physical and get into nature.
Vitamin D, all those good things. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I love that, the Advil, and because I'm a whole month older than you are, by the way. Just saying. So I know about some of the things we might need Advil for. So give us the elevator pitch for Burn.
Well, this is about two guys who are lifelong friends. They grew up together in Vermont, a mile apart on a dirt road above a small town, and they've been together since kindergarten, playing on sports teams together, having dinners at each other's houses, helping each other cut firewood. Really, really tight as brothers could get, and they're not real brothers. And they are in their mid-30s now. One teaches at University of Vermont. He teaches design, and the other became a woodworker in Denver. And they meet every fall to hunt and fish. This year, they're up in north central Maine. They're moose hunting. And about 5 days into their trip, they're moving their camp. They come onto a bridge on a gravel road in the middle of nowhere that's been blown up. And they backtrack and come to a village that's been burned to the ground. And they soon come to realize that while they've been out, Maine has seceded from the Union. And they're in the middle of civil conflict. Yep, kind of like that. That's it.
That is it. And
It's a hoot. It's really wild.
it is. Peter, in previous interviews, you liken writing a novel to kayaking a new river where you just don't know what you're going to find around the next bend. It could be a wild animal devouring something. It could be something gorgeous. It could be a waterfall. It could be someone with a rifle. You like surprises.
I do.
So
Yeah.
tell me what surprised you while you were writing Burn.
The whole thing, because I mean, you probably heard, but I never plan or plot my novels or outline.
You're a
And
pantser.
I came up as a poet, and I'm always more interested in the music of the language than anything else. And so I start with first line that whose music I love, cadence and sound, and that's an image somehow, and then that's a place, and I write into the second and third line that way, and then pretty soon I kind of bump into whatever's really concerning me. That's, whatever's on my heart. And I started Burn. I think the first line is something like, he let the fire burn down to embers, let the dark envelop him, and stood. And I had no idea who it was or where he was. And then pretty soon he's looking over a lake at night and he's smelling char, and it's the char of a burned town. And I was sort of surprised by that. And then there was a friend there, and it was apparent that they were very close. And these two guys just kept running into more and more devastation and signs of terrible violence. And I had no idea what was going on. And it was so, I think, to answer your question, the most thrilling part of writing this book was the constant surprise. I mean, I didn't know if this was a War of the Worlds type of thing where, was it aliens, that were wiping out these towns? Was it an invasion from Canada? I had no clue. And I didn't really know who these guys were until they began to, live in this world. And so I have to tell you that I had as much fun writing this book as my readers will reading it, because I was constantly blown away. I was like, oh my God, it was really fun to write.
Had you watched the movie Civil War while
No,
you
no,
were
no,
writing
no.
this
Civil
before?
War came out, quite a bit after I was done, because, it takes a while to get a book to press through the edits and through all that. And so, yes, Civil War came out, and I thought, well, we're all in the zeitgeist, people are thinking about the same sorts of things.
Right. I mean, did you have any political administration in mind while you were writing it?
I think whatever's going on in the world is going to, the biggest stories. And for me, I suppose right now, one of the bigger stories for me is the fracturing in our country, the terribly sad divides that are separating one side of the country from another ideologically. I just think it's so sad and it's unnecessary. And I think must be weighing on me. And I think, all artists, I think our job is somehow to embrace the things in our world that are unembraceable, and try to wrap our arms around them and try to meet them, with clear eyes, and try to meet them with an open heart and interpret and digest and maybe transform. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this story now in our country is, I think it's, with climate change, it's the story of our time.
I just listened to an absolutely beautiful thing on Instagram, Maya Angelou talking about being a rainbow in somebody else's cloud. It was just such a beautiful sentiment. And I think that's what we need to do. So your stories, Burn, I've read several of your books, and they're all relatively dark, but with hope. There's always a glimmer of hope, right? So, and you want to have fun while you're writing, as you said, you like surprises. So, do you think we all have angels and devils on our shoulders? Because
I like
you don't
I
seem
like
like
the little smile when you ask that. Of course we do. Oh my God. I remember when I was like 14 reading D.H. Lawrence's wonderful book of essays on studies in American literature. And he wrote about Ben Franklin, and there was this line about how, Ben Franklin tried in his writing to set a nice picket fence around a nice yard of our spirit, but that our spirits really are these dark forests with all sorts of demons running around. And I thought that really rang a bell for me. I thought, yeah, of course. I mean, we're all just, full of these angels and demons, and they're all, wrestling with each other. And sometimes the wrestling is fun, and sometimes it's deadly serious. And I think right now as a country, we really, I think right now as a country, we could really, really benefit from listening to our better natures and treating each other with kindness and legitimacy, and we're all just trying to get along and make a living.
Yeah,
If we could see
absolutely.
that on the other side, it would be good.
It's funny. I mean, You could probably tell I'm not really a dark kind of person, but when I write short stories, they go dark. So I guess that's where my alter ego is finding an
Mm,
expression, and I let her go with it. So it's kind of fun.
mm.
Um, and you talk about the music and language, which is so evident in your writing. Talk to us about the Tang Dynasty poets and how you discovered them and how they've influenced you.
Yeah. Well, my first assignment was I was writing poetry in my room in Boulder after college, and I was living in a house with a friend who was had a cheap room, and we were best friends from school. And I was just trying to make a living. I was teaching kayaking. I was delivering pizza, and I was spending all day writing poems in my room and short stories. And a friend said one day, "Why don't you combine your interests? Why don't you just write for Outside Magazine? You're kayaking all this crazy stuff. You're writing in your room all day. Why don't you combine them?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And thank God when you're young and dumb, you don't know what you can't do. And I went down to the magazine store. I got an outside, and I looked on the masthead for a name of a senior editor that sounded nice, Laura Honhold. And I got the 800 number for the magazine. I called it, and they were in Chicago at the time, early times. And somebody answered, a receptionist, and said, "Outside Magazine." I said, Laura Honhold, please." And she said, "Just a minute." I was like, "Oh crap!" And then I heard Laura here, and I started talking as fast as I could. And I said, "Hey, I'm a writer, live in Colorado. I just had a short story published in Harper's, which was sort of true. It was a little tiny reprint of a college story, very short, in the reading section up front, but it was there."
That works.
And I said, I'm a class 5 kayaker, and I think you guys should send me to the Tibetan Plateau to kayak this first descent." And there was this incredulous pause. And then she said, "I'm going to take a chance on you. And we've heard about this expedition. We'd like to cover it. We don't have a writer that can kayak class 5, and I'm going to pay half your expenses. If you write a good story, I'll pay the other half, and I'll buy the story." So I was very excited because I could buy a new paddle. Mine was all duct taped together. And I went, and I won't tell the whole story, but long and short of it is, on a training run up right beneath the mountains of the Tibetan Plateau, right beneath the Himalayas, the river flooded, and a man washed into a log jam, and I got there first and tried to pull him off, and he was really wedged, and we tried and tried, a bunch of us with pulleys, and the river, I held his head as the river rose over his head, and he died. And I had to paddle across the river and tell his wife that they were on their honeymoon, that he was gone. And
Oh,
uh, she cremated him the next day, took his ashes, and left the country. And the Chinese revoked our river permit. And the day after that, we all went down to the river. We were just traumatized. We were in grief, and we gathered by the river. And I had this book of poems. I thought my very first assignment that I would bring a book of poetry from the country. And I've done that ever since, whenever I travel now, sort of to get to the heart of the place. And I just picked a poem. We sang Amazing Grace, and I picked a poem by a Tang Dynasty poet named Li Shangyin, and it was called "When Will I Be Home?" And I read it, and then we sort of got in the bus and went up onto the grasslands of the Tibetan Plateau for a couple of weeks and just drove around kind of grieving. And I came back, and I said, "I can't write your story." And she said, "Why?" And I told Laura what had happened. And she said, "You go write that." And that was an odd way to start in journalism, because it was their submission for the National Magazine Award that year. And um, so I knew that if I didn't take another assignment right away and get in a kayak again, I probably would never kayak again. And so I took another, expedition assignment from another magazine, and that launched my career. But 27 years later, when I sat down and I fell in love, the book was called 100 Poems from the Chinese, and it was translated by a wonderful poet named Kenneth Rexroth. And I recommend anybody get it. It's a slim little book, and it's full. I just became completely enamored of the Tang Dynasty poets. These guys were sort of original blues artists. They were aficionados of loss. They could in just a few lines they could place you knee deep in a mountain stream with a mist shredding in the pines and maybe a temple bell in the distance, and then just break your heart in like 5 lines. And I loved the poems. And 27 years later, I was writing the last line of the Dog Stars, the last page of the Dog Stars, and I wrote just out of the blue. I wrote, and Higgs' favorite poem was by Li Shangyin, and it was written in the 9th century. And 27 years later, it was the poem I had read for Dave by that river in Western Szechuan. And so those poems have meant a lot to me ever since. They're on my bed table, several volumes.
Wow, I'll have a link to that too in my show notes. Have you ever personally had any close calls on the river?
Yeah, I have, and I have a handful of times where I got into a situation where maybe I flipped in a bad place. I just remember saying, "Oh," and somehow getting myself out of it. But I was certain that was the end. It's bracing, to tell you the truth.
All right.
Um,
I wonder how that might change you. Would you allow me to read a couple passages from your book?
that would be so neat. I haven't heard anybody read it aloud. And the audio I haven't heard yet. So
Who did the audio? Did you do the audio? No.
no. The Mark Deakins is a wonderful. He's read all my books. I always think give an actor a job, someone who can do it much better than I can.
Well, I got to tell you, you're talking about the language and how you can be in a place and the feels and holy mackerel. I just want to read two passages. One is when Jess is at the helm and he's trying to pretend, that all the ridiculous things aren't happening. At the helm, he could pretend for a few seconds at a time that he was 18 and on his watch in the wheelhouse somewhere off Nantucket, that he was beholden to no one and not broken-hearted, and that the lake, tilting in stillness and luminous with last light, was not a lake at all, but the deeps just west of George's Bank. Uh, Hello, that's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And then I have to read this too, because again, his friendship with Story is amazing, and he spends a lot of time with Story's family, and he's like another son to the family, and he sleeps in the barn and and all that. So here's where he's thinking about death, actually. And he slept better under the heap of barn-smelling quilts than anywhere else on the planet. Happier. Sometimes at night, looking out the window at the flowing shadow of the tree line under stars blown like grass seed, and listening to the barks of geese drifting down from the high dark, he felt that he might die. Not perish, but simply cease at the apex of his own fullness. There would be a rightness in it. Joy could not be sustained for more than a minute, but what if one was lifted on a wave of happiness and, right on the breaking crest, one's spirit blew off like a wind-torn albatross? I have goosebumps.
I loved hearing that from you. That was wonderful. Thank you.
You have no idea how many things I have underlined and marked in here, whole passages. Because again, and listeners out there, we're talking with Peter Heller. And if you're looking for ways to write better, you need to read really good writing. And you need to get goosebumps, and you need to cry, and you need to gasp, and you need to recognize what it is in those passages that make you do those things. I mean, this is a study in how to be a better writer. I mean, those are just two of so many passages in here that just stopped me in my tracks. So thank you for that. All right, age 12. You're reading the dictionary.
Yeah. Yep. So
Did you keep a
my
Did you keep
dad,
a list? Did you keep a
oh
list of
yeah,
new
yeah,
words?
absolutely. Yep. I always keep a list of words that have a nice heft, a certain texture and sound, and if I don't know them, I look them up.
Do you have a personal account to OED?
No, I have an OED. I
Well,
don't
you
need
have.
a account. I
Which
love that.
version? Which version is it?
I have the full one with the magnifying glass in 2 volumes, and then I have the more compact one, which I love because I can actually read it.
S-
It's a great book. I mean, I think all a writer might need today is, the Bible, the OED. I don't know.
the Bible. There you go. Did you know that the third edition is in preparation right now?
No.
Of course you. Well, it is,
Oh,
and some of the recently added words are twinkle toes, bomb shelter, crank call, and grosso. There are over 500,000 words and phrases in the OED. Yeah, third one is in preparation. So how do you buy an OED? I don't even. What does it cost?
I don't know.
Do you remember?
I got mine a
Cajillions.
long time ago. I remember I asked an aunt and uncle for the OED for Christmas, and they were shocked. I think I didn't know how much it actually cost, but somewhere they found one in an antique store. I think not even a bookstore that was
Oh man.
2 volumes with a magnifying glass. It's a great book. But what's so great about it, and what you can't do now with an online dictionary really is you can go down a page of B words, and you can see the cousins that sort of sound similar, all sort of together there, and it's really great because you can make a real palette. You write down words that sound sort of similar, that have shades of different meaning, and I just love that. Yeah.
Back to your book. Have you ever had or do you have a friendship as close as Jess has with Story?
I've been very, very blessed with some very, very close friends, and the river is about a real friendship. It's sort of Jack and Win are really sort of me. I mean, Jack is way tougher than I am, and better read, and spent half his life in the saddle. But he's sort of me in the river, and Win is sort of my friend Jay Mead, uh, and I think in Burn, the friendship is really sort of, there's a sort of me, and then there's sort of a combination of a friend named Landis and a friend named Jay, and yeah, I've been very, very, very lucky to have these guys. I didn't have brothers growing up, and so they've become family.
I didn't either. Four sisters. Whew.
Wow, fun.
Speaking of family and chosen family, and again, there's a chosen family in this, which is just stunning and beautiful in so many ways. Um, the story goes back and forth, and Jess goes back in time with all these different memories as he's experiencing with Story all these absolutely horrific things. There's a line in there from Jan: love is attention. Talk about
Yeah.
that.
Well, I really believe that. I mean, a million pages have been written about what love is, and I always thought, nobody really knows what love is. Everybody's everybody's relationship is really a different species, and relationship between family, friends, lovers. Uh, Love is so myriad and diverse, and comes in so many colors and shades, and so it's a little confusing to think about and to use the word. But then it's occurred to me as I've gone through my life, and that really that's what it boils down to, and in not just in our relationships with other people, but in our relationships to everything we do all day long. um, if I'm sitting down to work. I want to have an open heart, and I want to give the best of myself, and I want to give my fullest attention to my work. And that to me is love. And if I'm sitting down with a friend, I want to give my fullest attention, and that to me is love. And if I'm fishing on a mountain creek and it's evening and the upstream breeze is coming up and it smells like spruce, and I want to give the very fullest attention to every step, to every observation, to every cast. And that way I'm there in love. And so it's very simple. That's what I like about that definition.
And did that phrase, love is attention, just come to you while you were writing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's
The great
different.
thing about writing fiction, Laurel, is that you don't know, like, there's so many things that I don't know that I knew until I write it. And I was writing my novel about my mom, Celine. My mom died and I missed her so much. I was so devastated. I started writing, as I do, about something. And it was about a young girl. She was 8 years old and she was put in her own apartment by an evil stepmom. And began the novel with a story, but pretty soon this girl was a young woman, and she was searching for a private investigator to solve a mystery about her father. And that private investigator was my mom. She was a PI. And so I bumped into my mom within a few pages, and I realized that I missed her. She had died maybe 6 or 8 months before. And I realized that I just missed her so badly. That's who I really wanted to hang out with for the next bunch of months. So that's how it works. And so wait, where were we going with that? Because that was
Love is attention, I
oh yeah,
guess. Yeah.
The what you don't know. So
Yeah.
I began to write about my mom, and then as I was writing the novel about my mom, I began to learn so much about her, which is so interesting. I mean, I'm writing the
Yeah.
book, but I'm discovering things about my mother that are real and true, and I'm learning things about her as I'm writing it. I think that's the magic of fiction. It's so cool.
It is so cool. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Right.
Absolutely love that. I mean, you present the sense of place so incredibly beautifully, and you have, I mentioned it before, and you could tell by what I read, you have all the feels. You have love and loyalty and betrayal and horror and suspense and longing and shame and confusion and awe. You have all these things, and you're telling me none of these are planned.
No,
How do you
no,
get them
no.
all in? How do you get them all in one book?
I think if they're not planned is how it happens. Because they want to be in there. They show up. They grab you by the collar. It's like, hey, I'm here. Yeah, but I think the thing about, okay, so for me, writing is about following your nose and following the energy. And I go in the fiction wherever there's the most energy. And sometimes that energy is very dark, as you know, it's like, woo, it's horrendous. And sometimes the energy is just sheer, it's ecstasy, it's awe, it's joy, it's bewildering wonder, it's all that. And so I'm writing along, and it's my party, I mean, I can go wherever I want, right? I'm sitting in a coffee shop. Why not transport to the places that are in some way or another uh, fantastic? And so that's what I do. And it's really
Coffee
fun.
shop, the coffee shop mentioned. All right. And again, in previous interviews, you've mentioned this being in a coffee shop and
Yeah.
being so transported by your work that you are in tears as you're writing, right? And again,
Yeah, and then the people around me, they're looking at me thinking, that poor son of a bitch is going through a terrible divorce, or his dog died or something.
now my
And
question
really what's
to
happening is I'm more thrilled than I have ever been.
yeah, well, my question to you about that is, don't the people in the coffee shop know you by now?
Yes. But you always have the tourists coming through, like, why is that guy crying at the table?
I think that's awesome. And again, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader, no
Yeah, I
uh,
guess. But
joy
it's
in it.
fun.
Yeah.
I go into this coffee shop and I have a mug with a John Deere tractor on it. I've had it for for 10 years. And so when I come in, half the time they're already reaching on the shelf for that mug and making the latte, which is maybe my fourth shot of coffee that day.
Oh boy, that's a lot of coffee. So Jess's character in the book is, we talk about character development, right? And how important it is for the main character, Jess in this case, to somehow evolve, grow, change a little bit. The character development in Jess is so subtle and slow and gradual. It's just totally believable. And I think the surprise that the two men find, and I don't know if you want to talk about that. Let's just say the third member
Right.
of the group. And I don't want to have any spoilers, but let's just say that his development through the book has a lot to do with that surprise that they find. And it's just beautiful. We won't talk about it because that would be
very
a spoiler.
good about no spoilers. Thank
all
you.
right, all right, all right. So Paolo Bacigalupi, you met him somewhere and we're chatting with him, and he taught you that. Do you remember what he taught you about what your job was?
It's the best advice. Literally the best advice that any writer's ever given me. So I was writing the painter. So I sat down. I wrote my first novel, The Dog Stars. I would go every day and say, "Don't think, just listen." And then it was like Hig was on the other side of a campfire telling me what had happened to him a few years ago. It was thrilling. I wrote the book and I thought, sophomore effort, second novel syndrome. I don't want that, man. I've heard that, after a first debut novel comes out, whether the response is good or bad, it can freeze up the writer for the next book. And I thought, I just better, I knew I had 9 months till The Dog Stars was published. I better get started on the next one and have it mostly done by then. So I started him. It was the painter. I have this painter. He's a rough and tumble guy, getting his life back together in Paonia in the Western Slope. He loves to fish. He's kills a guy with a rock and who's beating a horse. And then I started thinking, well, should this guy have a brother? And should the brother be bent on vengeance, the guy that he killed? And I called my editor, Jenny, and I said, Jenny Jackson at Knopf. And I said, should he have a brother? And she said, yeah, of course. So I wrote the brother. And then I started thinking, he's got a commission in Santa Fe to paint these twins. When should he go? Should the brother who's bent on vengeance follow him? And then I started thinking, I'm thinking about it. That can't be good because I didn't think about the last one. And so I got all tied up in this novel, and I was actually in Paonia in the little tiny coffee shop where my character, Jim Stegner, meets his model and eventual lover. And I'm there, and it's a tiny shop, and there's one table in the middle. You're going to talk to anyone who's in there. And guess who was in there? Paolo Bacigalupi, the great science fiction writer. I mean, this guy's won Andromeda Awards, Hugo Awards, blockbuster bestsellers, marvelous writer. And I'd never really talked to him, waved to him on the street and stuff. But so we got to talking about writing the way writers do. And I started telling him about my challenge. And he's a lot younger than me, but he picked up his coffee cup and he said, sit down, son. I have a story to tell you. So we sat at the one table and he said, I wrote 2 short stories. One sort of fugue state. I kind of woke up, it was done. I sent it off. It won a big award and I love it. Second story, I completely plotted every second of the story, engineered the characters to interact a certain way in every scene, complete authorial control. I sent it off, it won a big award, and I love it. Now when I hold them both up, I can't tell the difference. I love them both. And he leaned forward and he said, your job is just to make sure it doesn't suck. And it was amazing. Like the whole sort of creative burden just sort of lifted off my shoulders. And I thought, that's probably something I can handle. I could do that. And what he was really saying, which was so wonderful, was that, rely on your craft. You've written 100 stories that you've thrown out. True. Just tighten up the slow stuff. take out the bad stuff, move stuff around, add stuff where you need it. Just make sure it's not terrible. And what he was also saying was, every story, every novel can have a different method. Don't worry about it. You know, sometimes you plot it, sometimes you bootstrap it, you go line to line, sometimes maybe you let the horse run, but then maybe you rein in and sort of block it out, sort of maybe vaguely a little bit, and then you run again. Don't sweat it. I love that. I just love that. And so
So
for
it
me, sort of like it works very well with how I work, because it's like I do keep the pen on the paper, you know, so to speak. Like I work on a laptop, but I don't edit as I go, ever. You know, I just want momentum. I want that kind of the kind of speed that you get. It's not speed for speed's sake. It's the kind of speed you get when you're excited about what you're doing. You're not questioning. Some of it's going to be terrible. So what? You know, it's like training. You know, it's like, don't worry about it. You're going to fall down. You know, just write. Follow your nose. Follow the energy. Follow the joy, and then at the end, you know, you can. There's a lot of terrible stuff. You can get rid of it.
so
Good advice.
how do you sleep at night if you're leaving on an exciting moment in your story? You say you don't finish that because you want to get right to it in the next morning. How do
I
you go to sleep? Like
never.
my brain wouldn't turn off. I would be thinking about it all night.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know. I mean,
You're just used to it, I guess. Yeah.
I'm not like mono focus. I mean, there's a big world out there, and you know, and I read and I watch good movies. I watch the Olympics. You know, it's like, you know, it's. I get outside. I see friends. You know, it's like you're always like, for me, I'm a baleen feeder, you know, you sort of like a whale, you're going through the world and you're just sifting and gathering. And so, but I didn't know, I really think it's important not to write through an exciting scene and blow through your quota, because then you're done, then you finish and you go, you're at your coffee shop or wherever you are and you go, that was great. Phew. I can have the rest of my day now. And then you come back and
Oh,
guess what? It's a transition. You're at a double return. You're at white space, and you might as well start the book over every day. You got to start the rock rolling up the hill if you write that way. But
wow.
if you write your quota, go just past it till you're in the middle of something really exciting. You jump out of bed the next morning. You can't wait to get going. And plus, the other thing about it is, because you left it there, and all that stuff that you could have written then that you didn't, it's building up like this energy, like a battery. And because you didn't write it, you've had all night to cogitate and think about it in your sleep. You know how we do so much work in our sleep,
Yes.
which is a concept I adore, right? You know, it's
Yes.
like work in your
Ab-
sleep. How cool.
absolutely. Okay. All right. I'll try that a little more as I'm getting toward the end of this novel I'm working on. All right. Serious question. Serious question. AI in publishing. What's it going to
I,
do?
I don't know. I was at a gathering the other night, and this woman told me that she was editing a children's book and asked AI to write a poem in a certain style about a certain thing. You know, I don't want to identify, but and it did, and she edited it, and that's how they wrote this book. It's a book about children's book about a certain sort of technical subject. Uh, it blew me away. I mean, I walked away from that dinner and I was like, oh man, uh, that's sad. She was very excited about it, but I'm not. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's a big discussion now, and people are asking. I ask myself, could AI ever make the kinds of connections that we make as human beings, have the kind of heart that we have, or at least simulate it well enough to be undetectable? I don't know. I really don't. And so, but I also think, you know what? I think human beings have been, you know, we have gone through as a species momentous transitions between old technologies and new technologies that have shaken our societies, and we always get through it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Earth will. That's the problem. That's a whole nother discussion, but we'll
Yeah.
get through the AI thing. I don't know if the planet will, the planet may shrug us off before it's fully realized. Before AI
Yes.
running, all the other technologies that are screwing everything up.
Right. 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 Oh, okay. No,
A lot of
I'm
stuff to worry about. It's like, I don't know.
there's a lot to worry about, but we have to remember to be a rainbow in other people's clouds. So I understand. And again, we're talking about Burn, and we're talking about you, and we're talking about your life and how your life informs your writing and all that kind of stuff. You you kind of live off the grid, right? Or zero
I
carbon
built a house.
footprint. Tell me
Uh,
about how you live. How do you live?
so I lived in Paonia for 10 years, and I was a poet. And so I didn't have a ton of money. And I built a house out of the dirt from the excavation and into the hill. A big machine just took the dirt, poured it into this hopper, and it kicked out these blocks. And I built an adobe house, and it's off the grid, and it's just amazing. It never freezes. It's all the windows are on the south side. It has so much mass it's a dirt house. It's beautiful, and it really holds the heat. I have a wood stove, cut firewood. It's just it's very, very low to the ground. It doesn't use any fossil fuel at all. Except I do have a propane tank for the stove. And then I built a house in Denver where I live most of the time, and it was supposed to be a net zero house, and I found that it has a heat pump and a lot of solar, but I found that it actually the heating and the cooling and everything happens with the solar, and I found that it's actually about 50% net zero. So it's not what I wanted, but we're trying, and so do the best we can.
Yeah. I mean, have you felt like you've had to sacrifice much?
No, not really. I mean, the thing about living low to the ground is it's incredibly fulfilling. It's like really, I mean, the place in Peonia, I mean, it just makes me happy every time I'm in there because it's like this living organism it's not contributing to, you can feel it, it's not contributing to the unraveling of the ecosystem. And that feels good.
Yeah. Our youngest son had some property in Marfa, Texas for several years, and there were old adobe structures on the property. And he created adobe bricks by hand from the mud that was on the property. It was really pretty amazing. Yeah.
That is neat.
And those structures are incredible because in the heat of Texas, we would walk into one of the structures and it would be cool. Just remarkable, unbelievable.
Amazing. Wow.
So, Peter Heller, you have a very full marketing launch schedule coming up. You're all over the place, and listeners out there, find him wherever he's going to be. But how do you maintain your enthusiasm? I mean, we're talking you're all over the place and doing, interviews like this with big groups of people. How do you maintain your enthusiasm? Jumping jacks,
Love, no,
power
no,
poses.
I love meeting my readers. I mean, writing's super solitary, right? I mean, I write
Yeah.
in a coffee shop because there's people around. I
Yeah.
don't want to be in an echo chamber in a bell. So I really, really love, every couple of years going out and meeting the readers. It's really fun, and so it's good.
You know,
And then
you,
get good exercise every day. Try and get outside.
yeah. Yeah. When was the last time you attended a Dartmouth, or I should say Dartmouth Winter Carnival?
Oh, I think when I was there, I didn't go back to a winter carnival after school, but they were pretty fun.
1977, when I was
Yeah.
dating a Dartmouth boy. I
Oh
went to
boy.
I went to the Winter Carnival when I was at Smith before I joined the Army. That's
No. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah, I know.
Wow.
So some interesting memories there. But yeah, I remember that the ice sculptures were just
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
stunning.
And the bonfire is
Yeah,
crazy. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
really. It's just so cool. All right. Here's 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Favorite color?
Favorite color?
Mhm.
Oh my God. It has to be the whole range of blues to greens.
Okay, blues to greens. I like that. Green's been my favorite color ever since I was little, ever since I knew a color was green, just is and
Yeah,
always
yeah.
has been my favorite color.
Yeah.
The first food item you're most likely to consume in the morning?
Oh, I can't get over bacon and eggs. I'm sorry. I need to become a vegetarian. I know.
Why?
Because I think factory farming is terrible. I think we're going to look at it like the way we look at slavery now, looking back.
Oh,
And so that there's a real dissonance, a spiritual dissonance when I eat factory farm meat.
all righty. We
But
have we
bacon
have
and eggs, really love it.
we have a local butcher here, so I don't consider that factory farmed because I can see the cows that I'm going to
Yeah,
eat
yeah,
the
yeah,
next
yeah.
day.
No.
That was not a rapid fire question. That was probably more in depth than I wanted it to be. Okay, yes or no? Cats are people too and should be allowed to vote.
Absolutely. No, hands down, no question. I am a total cat person. I love cats. I see cat. True.
You have one cat. How many cats do you have?
I've had many cats, and right now I'm not going to tell you the story, but right now we are without a cat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
Go get a cat.
yeah.
So, Peter, this book comes out August 13th, which is just a few days from today. Yes. I got
Mhm.
an advance copy. I am the luckiest girl on earth. And you can order now, people listening, order Burn. I would say that out of all the books that I've read 3 or 4 of your books, this is the best. You're getting better every time you write a book. And
Thank you for
so
saying.
maybe you should stop with this one.
Never. Right till you die.
Right till you die. Absolutely. I don't think I'm going to live long enough to write all the stories that are in my head. So, August 29th, you are going to be in Edwards, Colorado, and I'm
Mhm.
going to be there. Will you save me two front row seats?
Of course.
I won't hold you to it, but I am really looking forward to having all my books autographed by you. And again, listeners, we have been talking with Peter Heller, an amazing, incredibly beautiful writer and author, and so many awards. This one needs to win all of them. I'm pretty sure. Thank you so much for
Thank you
being with me today.
so much. And can I tell people if they want to come see me, because I really
Yes,
love my readers,
yes.
go to peterhellerauthor.com, and if you go to events, all the events are there. I'll be on the East Coast next week, up and down the East Coast, and then in Colorado, and mostly in September, all around Colorado. And so I would really love to meet you guys. I mean, it's so fun for me.
And you are a fun, cool guy, and this has been amazing. Will you send me a few photos? Because I'm going to have
Oh, yeah,
links
yeah,
and
yeah.
photos on my website at leadvillelaurel.com. Everybody, order this book right now as soon as you finish listening to this, and you're going to read it a million times, and you're going to underline as much as I've underlined it, and you're going to learn so much from it, and it's going to touch you in very many ways. Peter, thank you. I look forward to seeing you at the end of the month, and keep writing.
Thank you so much, Laura. What a pleasure. Thanks.
My pleasure. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.